Hey guys, tonight we journey deep into the emerald belly of Mesoamerica, where thick jungle air clings to your skin like a damp shroud, and the howls of unseen animals echo from somewhere just beyond the tree line. You've taken a wrong turn off the tourist trail, way off, and now you're standing at the edge of a clearing as the morning mist lifts slowly, reluctantly, like the lid of a tomb. And there it is, a Maya temple complex, taller than you imagined, older than you hoped, and absolutely not equipped with an elevator. The stones glisten with dew and age. Birds scream like they're warning you, and they might be. Because you're not just visiting history, you're stepping into it. You will eat what they ate, breathe what they breathed, and most dangerously try to survive the spiritual and physical rigour of a day here. Spoiler, you probably won't make it till sunset. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is in your corner of the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge forward. The humidity doesn't just press, it sinks into you, as though the jungle itself is trying to claim your sweat. It's dawn, and already the world feels loud. Cicadas buzz in long metallic drones. A distant monkey hoots with all the grace of an air horn. Welcome to the Maya lowlands. Before you even reach the first stone step, your shoes, well, sandals, because boots were a no-go in this climate, are caked in red mud. You squint through the haze. The pyramid rises above the mist like a god's knuckle punching through the forest floor. Steep, imposing, decorated with stucco masks, each staring down as if judging your stamina from the get-go. No crowds, no cameras, just you, a half-awake guide chewing on something suspiciously leafy, and several very uninterested howler monkeys lurking in the canopy above. Their job? Screaming at you. They're really good at it. As you approach the temple, the first scent that hits you isn't incense or jungle blooms. It's stone, wet, old stone, like a library drowned in a rainstorm. You reach out and touch the limestone. It's cool, alive. It's been here for 1,000 years and will be here long after your little cultural immersion trip ends. Your guide grunts. You climb now. You blink. Already? He points to the narrow staircase that shoots straight up the pyramid's face like a vertical treadmill designed by someone who hates knees. You take the first step. It's higher than you thought. Then the second. By step 20, you're regretting every late-night burrito you've ever eaten. Your thighs burn, the heat is rising, and worst of all, the incline is so steep you're practically on all fours. It's not climbing, it's begging gravity to let you live. Historically, these pyramids weren't built for your comfort. No handrails, no wide, shallow steps. Each ascent was a sacred journey, ritualized, painful, and meant to humble you before the gods. Especially if you're on your way to see the high priest, which lucky you is exactly what your guide is muttering about. And if you're wondering how ancient Maya priests got up here in heavy robes and jaguar pelts, well, they were either in better shape or just really motivated by divine expectations. There's a theory, though scholars remain divided on its accuracy, that nobles practiced these climbs daily as a form of devotion and physical training. Others argue they had servants for that. Either way, you have neither noble lineage nor a servant, just a rising heart rate and a rising sun. By the time you collapse on the top platform, your back is slick with sweat. Below you, the canopy stretches to the horizon, green and indifferent. Nearby, a giant stone altar looms. It's chipped at the corners, stained by centuries, and definitely not for picnics. Your guide says nothing, just points east. There, in the clearing, more temples, smaller ones, homes for lesser gods maybe. And beyond that, a flat, dusty court surrounded by carved walls. The ball court, we'll get there later. Spoiler, it's not dodgeball. The sun peeks through the clouds and the world becomes gold. The air is thick with memory. You sit, breathing deeply. A bird cries above, wings slicing the sky. You try to feel the spirituality. You really do. Instead, you mostly feel damp. That's when your guide drops a little fact on you. This city, it ruled this region. Big power. People came from far. Walked days. He pauses, scratches something from his leg with the calm detachment of a man used to insects. They sacrifice here too. Big gods, hungry ones. You nod slowly. eyes wide, trying not to imagine what hungry gods have on their breakfast menu. Nearby, a carving on the temple wall catches your eye. It's a figure, sharp-nosed, stoic, wearing an elaborate feathered headdress. He holds a bowl. Inside it, could be flowers, could be a heart. The jury's still out. You lean in closer. The stone is worn, but the detail's incredible. Even after centuries of wind and rain, the story's still here. You wish you could read it. The glyphs are like abstract art married to math homework. Beautiful and utterly indecipherable. A breeze rolls through. For a moment the air shifts from oppressive to pleasant. And then you hear it. The deep droning blow of a conch shell. Your guide stands. "It starts," he says. You blink. "What does?" He smiles for the first time. You find out. He turns, walking down the other side of the pyramid. Feet sure, steps silent. You groan, because that means more stairs, more sweat, more humiliation by architecture. But you follow, because you're here now. And the Maya gods, they're watching. Your calves are already protesting, but you start the slow descent behind your guide. Every step down the temple pyramid feels like an invitation for gravity to test your reflexes. The stairs are narrow, some barely the width of your foot, and the angle is so steep it feels like you're climbing down the face of a cliff in flip-flops. There's no handrail, no safety signage, just you, your wobbly knees, and the quiet understanding that if you fall, you'll tumble all the way to the jungle floor like a particularly uncoordinated coconut. By the time you reach the ground, you're drenched in sweat. The heat hasn't peaked yet, it's still mid-morning, but already the jungle is wrapping itself around you like a hot, damp blanket. You catch your breath. You try to drink some water from your canteen, but the liquid inside is already warm, like the tea no one asked for. Your guide, still unbothered and apparently immune to both sweat and fatigue, motions toward another temple. This one is shorter, but somehow more ominous. There's something about its sharp angles, its shaded entrance, the way the steps vanish into shadow. You eye it nervously, but nope. He's not leading you into the temple this time. He's leading you up again. You sigh. Loudly. "Test," he says, tapping the stone beneath his feet. "They say gods watch you. Every step. See your heart." You eye the staircase. It sees your lunch. This structure was likely built as a ceremonial stage, perhaps not for mass gatherings, but for exclusive rituals. Its stairs are flanked by faded carvings, serpents, jaguars, what might be a decapitated head or two. The messages are subtle, yet unmistakable. Be worthy, or be gone. Historically, these staircases weren't just architecture, they were moral tests. You ascend not just physically, but symbolically. Your effort reflects your devotion. Which means when you trip slightly on the sixth step, you wonder if a god just marked you as emotionally inconsistent. A soft breeze blows, and for a brief moment, you spot movement on the edges of the temple. Two priests in robes dyed dark red with natural pigments appear like ghosts at the top. They're watching. You adjust your footing, try to look like someone who meditates regularly, and definitely didn't eat Pop-Tarts for breakfast. Eventually, with more grunting and questionable breathing noises than you'd like to admit, you reach the summit. Your reward? A small stone platform with no shade, no breeze, and the full weight of celestial judgment pressing down on you. Your guide simply nods and says, "Good. You do not fall. Barely." Then he adds, "But now, we go to sweat." You're not sure what that means, but it doesn't sound fun. You follow him down another set of stairs, mercifully shorter this time, toward a squat stone building nestled behind the main temple. There's no door, just a thick curtain of woven reeds and a smell that's halfway between burnt herbs and someone's old gym socks. He pulls the curtain aside. Steam billows out. The interior glows with a faint orange light. Welcome to the Temazcal, the Maya Sweat Lodge. You step inside. It's dark. Really dark. The only light comes from a pit in the centre filled with glowing stones and the occasional flicker from a clay dish burning some kind of incense. Copal, probably. It smells like pine, but sharper, heavier. It sits on your lungs. The temperature hits you like a punch to the soul. Within seconds, you're slick with sweat. Not glowing, not glistening, sweating. Aggressively. Your shirt clings to your back like wet paper. The air is so thick with heat and smoke that you can barely see the outlines of the other figures in the lodge. Priests, initiates, maybe one guy who's just here to nap. You're directed to sit cross-legged near the stones. Someone pours water on them. Hiss! The room becomes an oven. You try not to panic, you try to meditate. Instead, you start thinking about all the ways your paws are regretting this decision. The priest speaks. His words are rhythmic, slow, ancient. You don't understand the language, but the cadence is mesmerizing. You feel the vibrations more than hear the words. There's clapping, low chanting, the kind that gets under your skin and into your bones. This wasn't just a sauna for fun. This was a ritual cleansing, a way to purge spiritual and physical impurities before big ceremonies. Warriors, priests, royalty, all went through this to shed the outer filth, as one scholar once phrased it. Though experts still debate whether these sweat lodges were used daily, weekly, or just during certain moon phases, one thing's clear: you're being spiritually and epidermally roasted. And then the priest gestures toward a bowl. Inside is a thick, grainy paste, greyish, pungent, and suspiciously lumpy. He smears a handful on your chest. You squeak. It cleansed skin, your guide murmurs. Made from ash, bark, herbs, sometimes dung. You pause. Wait, did you say dung? He grins. Crocodile. But not much. You're not reassured. Yes, by the way, crocodile dung was indeed used in some ancient herbal treatments. The line between medicine and myth was flexible. You sit there, slowly baking, vaguely marinating, feeling your soul sweat out through your toenails. For a moment your mind drifts. You hear distant drums, or maybe your pulse, maybe both. You start seeing shapes in the smoke, plumed serpents, glowing eyes, your high school gym teacher shaking his head in disappointment. The priest chants louder, the heat intensifies, and just when you think you might pass out and meet Kukulkan himself, whoosh, the curtain flies open. Fresh air. The guide pulls you out like a loaf of spiritual bread. You stumble into the sunlight, blinking, panting, coated in herbs and existential regret. Your head is spinning. Your skin is tingling. You smell like an incense stick dipped in compost. Your guide slaps your back. You ready now? You're not. But here you are, and the day's just getting started. The moment you step away from the sweat lodge, the jungle greets you like an old friend who's a bit too enthusiastic, hot, damp, and entirely up in your personal space. You're woozy from the steam, legs shaky, and your hair has taken on a new personality. There's no mirror, but you're fairly certain you look like a mystic mushroom that's been lightly sautéed. Your guide says nothing. He just starts walking again, barefoot and unhurried. You stumble after him, the ash still flaking from your skin, some of the paste now crusting in weird places. At this point, hygiene is a distant memory, and deodorant, utterly useless. He leads you along a winding stone path bordered by short walls carved with glyphs. As you shuffle along, still internally debating whether the sweat lodge was spiritual or just fungal, your stomach makes a low, embarrassed growl. Food now, the guide says, but not like your food. Oh no! You reach a small courtyard near the edge of the complex. There's a covered cooking area, open flames licking the bottoms of clay pots, smoke curling skyward. A woman in a simple wrap tunic is grinding maize on a stone slab, rhythmically pushing the paste with the heel of her hand like she's kneading history. The smell is earthy, slightly sweet, with a hint of charcoal and mystery. She hands you a small folded tamale wrapped in a corn husk. You open it. Inside, a steaming mixture of ground maize, bits of squash, and something red that might be chili or beetle. You're afraid to ask. You take a bite. It's dry. Incredibly dry. Like someone tried to make cornbread in a sandbox. There's no salt, no spice, just warm, starchy sincerity. The woman watches you chew, expressionless. You nod. She nods back. This is acceptance. Historically speaking, maize wasn't just food. It was sacred. The Maya believed that humans were literally made of maize by the gods. So this isn't just lunch, it's theology wrapped in a husk. And you? You're casually chewing on the flesh of creation, while trying not to look like someone who would kill for a taco. Beside you, your guide dips his tamale in a dark paste made from roasted seeds. He notices your hesitation. Chaya, good plant, bitter, but make you strong. You smile politely and dip yours too. It's better, sort of? Like pesto's grumpy cousin. A young boy brings you a gourd filled with liquid. You sniff it. Smells faintly of smoke and something citrusy. You sip, and immediately cough. It's posel, a traditional maize-based drink served cold. Sometimes it's flavoured with cacao, sometimes not. This version tastes like lukewarm tortilla water mixed with regret. But hey, electrolytes. As you recover from your beverage-based betrayal, your guide squats near a fire pit and draws a circle in the ash with a stick. This is Earth, he says, and this, he draws a dot in the centre, is maize. He then draws rays shooting outward. Maize feeds everything. Birds, men, gods, you understand. You nod solemnly while still chewing. A kernel sticks to your molar like a sacred relic. There's a scholarly debate around whether the Maya saw corn as a literal god or a symbolic one. Some inscriptions point to maize deities with rich mythologies, sprouting from skulls, birthing civilizations. Others suggest maize was more of a cosmic metaphor. Either way, it's clear. You're not just eating calories, you're partaking in cosmology, with no napkins. A small group gathers near the courtyard, mostly children and elders. One of the older women is weaving something intricate with vibrant threads. She hums. It sounds like a lullaby for the earth. Even in a temple complex built for ritual and hierarchy, daily life still bubbles underneath. Children playing with clay figurines, chickens pecking at crumbs, a dog asleep in the shade. You start to relax. Mistake. The guide stands abruptly. Come, priest wait, he show you stars. Stars? It's the middle of the day. But again, you follow. He leads you up another winding path through the underbrush. No grand staircase this time, just a trail lined with carved stones depicting scenes of celestial importance. Serpents swallowing suns, kings transforming into trees, glyphs that twist and spiral like ancient comic panels. At the end of the path is a smaller temple, rectangular, with a domed roof and narrow slits for light. Inside it's dim, cool, quiet. This is the observatory. Your eyes adjust slowly to the darkness. Above, tiny pinpricks of sunlight shine through the stone ceiling, forming patterns on the floor. The guide points to them. Calendar. Sun tell us time, not like your watch. More honest. You glance down at your sweat-fogged digital wristwatch. It's flashing low bat. Fair point. The Maya calendar system was one of the most sophisticated of the ancient world. They didn't just track days, they tracked cosmic cycles. Lunar, solar, Venusian. They had calendars that repeated every 260 days, 365 days, and even 5,125 years. The famous long count. Yes, the one that panicked everyone in 2012. See? The guide points to a marking on the floor. That's where sun rise on solstice. And there, he points again, eclipse shadow come. Temple built so light touch that stone. Just once a year. He's right. The architecture isn't just decorative, it's functional. Sacred geometry used as a clock. A cathedral of time. You walk to the centre of the observatory. A beam of light lands exactly on a glyph that looks like a stylized eye. You feel seen and mildly judged. There's a fringe theory that these observatories were also used for political power. Some historians believe that by predicting eclipses or solstices, the priesthood could assert divine knowledge. Essentially, trust us, we talk to the stars. Others say they just liked good farming weather. You step back into the light, blinking. The jungle is still waiting, still buzzing, still watching. Your guide smiles. Next you watch game. Big game. You're still chewing ancient cornmeal and trying not to pass out. But you nod. Because clearly, watching doesn't mean sitting on the sidelines. And if this game is anything like the stairs, you're in real trouble. You follow your guide down another narrow trail, this one lined with upright stelae, tall slabs of carved stone that loom over the path like a gallery of silent judges. Each one is etched with scenes, kings holding sceptres, priests piercing their tongues, and serpents vomiting humans, classic Maya iconography. The stelae are cracked, their edges worn smooth by centuries of rain and sun, but the stories still radiate power. Some of the glyphs even shimmer slightly, as if sunlight bends around them, unwilling to let their voices go quiet. You try not to stare too long at the one where a man appears to be offering his own finger to a god that looks suspiciously like an angry gourd. Ceremonial way, your guide says. They go to Bull Court. You nod, as if that explains anything. You're still thinking about angry produce gods. Eventually the path opens into a broad, sunlit plaza. To your left and right, tall stone walls rise up, thick and angled inward. Carved hoops jut out from each wall about 20 feet off the ground. You pause. These aren't goals. These are insults to gravity. This is Pok to Pok, the guide says, the sacred ball game. You squint up at the hoop again. They threw the ball through that. He nods solemnly, but not with hands, only hips, shoulders, elbows. You blink. No hands. He grins. No mercy. The game of Pok to Pok, also called Olla Malistli by the Aztecs who played a version 2, wasn't just a sport. It was ritual theatre. Political, religious, sometimes fatal. The rubber ball could weigh nearly 10 pounds, and players had to keep it in play without using their hands or feet. Hitting it with your hip was the elite move. Kind of like soccer, if soccer heated your pelvis and possibly led to decapitation. Some scholars still debate the exact rules. Was it points-based? Was it more like volleyball? Or a wrestling match with a ball involved? What is certain is that it was an honour to play, and sometimes, depending on the ceremony, a fatal one. You're ushered into the shaded stone bench area along the side. A priest stands nearby, preparing for the match. He's adorned in feathers, obsidian jewellery, and what you're 80% sure is a jaguar pelt. He doesn't nod or smile. He simply motions to a small bowl and a painted gourd beside it. Corn and chili paste, your guide explains, for strength. Before game, you either thick red paste. It looks like spicy regret. You dip your finger in and taste. Big mistake. It hits your tongue like a punch wrapped in lava. You cough so hard your vision blurs. Your guide chuckles. Now you ready. Two teams emerge into the court, bare-chested, wrapped in leather and fabric, their bodies painted in black and red swirls. They stretch, roll their shoulders, slap their chests. They don't smile. No high fives. This isn't your neighbour's Saturday soccer league. This is spiritual warfare with athletic gear. The game begins with a low drumbeat and a shouted blessing from the priest. Then, thunk, the ball is slammed into play. It hits the court with a dull, heavy sound, and the players spring into action. It's mesmerising. They twist, dive, and pivot with explosive grace. One player launches himself sideways, hip first, and knocks the ball into the air where another deflects it with his forearm. It ricochets off the wall and tumbles back down. A third leaps, spins mid-air and slams it again with his thigh. The force alone would shatter your hip. You cross your legs instinctively. The crowd, small but intense, chants rhythmically. Some clap. A few elders watch with blank, serene expressions as though measuring the players' movements against divine patterns. You lean forward. What happens if someone gets it through the hoop? Your guide shrugs. Some say that team win. Some say they lose. You frown. That's not helpful, he smiles. The gods decide. And there it is. The maddening beauty of Maya belief. Victory and sacrifice were sometimes the same thing. In certain ceremonies, the winning captain was offered to the gods. Or maybe it was the loser. Or maybe only sometimes. The historical records are inconsistent. The glyphs vague, and scholars are still piecing together the truth. The jury's out, but in either case, glory was dangerous. Midway through the match, one player is hit squarely in the ribs by the ball. He grunts, falls, gasping. The priest rushes over, not with aid, but with a splash of something from the ceremonial gourd. The player sits up, dazed, drinks, then stumbles back into the game. The sun beats down, dust rises, the chants grow louder. You find yourself leaning forward, heart pounding. Then, the moment. One player slams the ball high, higher, through the stone hoop. The court falls silent. Everyone turns to the priest. He raises both arms slowly, then slams a staff into the ground. The crowd erupts, not in cheer but in a chant. Slow, ominous, rhythmic. The players bow. The priest walks to the centre of the court. You edge closer, your mouth dry again. The captain of the scoring team steps forward and kneels. The priest draws a sharp obsidian blade from his sash. Your stomach flips. Your guide places a hand on your shoulder. Symbol only, he murmurs. This time. The priest holds the blade high, then dips it in the bowl of paint, dragging it across the player's chest in a single stroke. Not blood, ceremony. Relief washes over you like cool rain, but the message is clear. Every game carries the weight of sacrifice. Today's may be symbolic, but the court remembers other days. You glance at the stone walls again. Along the top, weathered carvings show decapitated heads, players with wings, serpents coiled through hoops. The line between myth and memory here is blurrier than your sweat-streaked vision. As the crowd disperses, your guide stands. "Come, time to enter temple." You freeze. "Another one?" He grins. "The one that listens?" You're still watching the ball, now resting motionless on the stone floor. You realise you didn't just watch history, you were judged by it. And it's not finished with you yet. You follow your guide across the plaza, still reeling from the match, trying to process whether you just witnessed a sporting event, a theatrical ritual, or a low-key execution rehearsal. Your legs ache from sitting on stone too long, your mouth still tingles from the chili paste, and your ears are ringing with chants that feel like they're echoing from your ribcage. You're led through another stone archway, this one carved with jaguars and serpents twisting around each other in a cosmic wrestling match. The air changes as you step beneath it. It cools slightly. The noises of the ball court fade. Even the jungle seems to hush. Ahead looms a rectangular structure built from massive stone blocks. The doorway is narrow, almost defensively so, and framed by columns carved with images of priests, captives, and gods, with curling tongues and eyes like burning coals. Above, the lintel shows a ruler emerging from the mouth of a monster. Subtle. "This temple," your guide says softly, "hears all things." You blink. "Come again." "Whisper here," he continues, tapping his throat. "Gods will know." You glance at the doorway. It's dark inside. No torches, no windows, just a long shadow that feels heavier than it should. With a deep breath, you duck inside. Instantly, you're swallowed by cool, damp silence. The sound of your feet against the stone floor echoes sharply like footsteps in a cathedral. The corridor is narrow and slopes gently upward, forcing you to hunch slightly. You touch the wall. It's cold, slick in spots, and covered in glyphs so tightly packed they resemble the grooves on an ancient vinyl record. Your guide doesn't speak. He simply walks ahead, each step deliberate. The light from the entrance fades behind you, and soon you're relying on slivers of light from hidden skylights, shafts that fall in rigid columns onto the floor like celestial spotlights. Finally, you reach the main chamber. It opens suddenly, like walking into the heart of a stone giant. The ceiling rises high above, vanishing into shadow. The walls are covered in carvings, layers of glyphs, jaguars with obsidian eyes, plumed serpents coiling between the cracks. In the centre, a circular dais, flat, worn, with a shallow groove carved around its edge. You whisper something, just to test the legend. Maybe a name. Maybe, "I need air conditioning." It doesn't matter. The acoustics respond instantly. Your whisper bounces, multiplies, loops back to you like a 1,000-year-old game of telephone. Your guide grins. Temple is tuned, like drum or shell. You realise he's right. The room is designed to carry sound, crafted stone by stone to reflect and amplify even the softest noise. It's not random architecture, it's acoustic engineering. And this was built over 1,000 years ago. Take that, stadium designers. There's a theory, still debated of course, that the Maya intentionally designed some temples to resonate during rituals. Priests would chant, clap, or even whistle, and the sound would bounce off the limestone in specific patterns. Some structures create echoes that mimic a bird call, especially that of the sacred Quetzal. Your guide claps once. The room responds with a strange bird-like echo. You stare. That was... the bird? He nods. Quetzal. Messenger bird. Sacred. You begin to understand. This temple wasn't just a place to worship. It was a place to perform. Sound was part of the message. Reverence, fear, awe. All amplified. You wander along the wall, running your fingers over the glyphs. One scene shows a ruler kneeling, blood flowing from a cut in his tongue. Another shows a woman standing in fire, her hair turned into snakes. There's a bowl set into a small alcove, burnt at the edges, filled with old ash. You ask, "What's that?" "Offerings," your guide says. "Food, blood, breath." Breath. He nods. "Speak name of God. Blow smoke. It rise." You're handed a stick of incense. Copal again. The same sticky resin from the sweat lodge, only this time dried and wrapped in a palm leaf. Your guide lights it from a tiny coal he pulls from his pouch. The smoke spirals upward immediately, dancing toward a hidden vent in the ceiling. You whisper a name. Any name, you won't say which. The smoke twitches as if acknowledging you. Of course, that could be airflow, or the beginning of heat stroke. Still, you feel a shiver trace your spine. The Maya believed in a layered universe, one of sky, earth, and the underworld. Temples like this one were access points between the realms, and words spoken inside carried more weight, more danger. This wasn't just spiritual metaphor, it was physical geography. You're standing at a crossroads of cosmic traffic. There's a passage at the back, partially blocked by collapsed stone, but enough remains to suggest it once led deeper, perhaps into a chamber where oracles sat, or where bones were kept, or where captives made their final prayers. Some believe these inner sanctums were used for divination, others say sacrifice. Some fringe theorists think they were sound chambers for inducing visions. The academic jury is perpetually out. You stare into the darkness of that passage, it stares back. Your guide doesn't offer to go in, neither do you. Instead, he leads you out, back into the sunlight. It feels rude to breathe loudly after that kind of silence. You blink in the glare. Everything feels sharper now. Colours, sounds, the weight of your own heartbeat. The temple might not have taken your voice, but it definitely heard it. Your guide hands you a small piece of obsidian. It catches the light, flashes red for a second. Gift, he says, for speaking truth. You nod slowly, because at this point lying feels unsafe. The air shifts again, and somewhere not too far off a drum begins to beat. Steady, low. Come, the guide says. The king is bleeding. You freeze. He shrugs. Ceremony. You sigh. Of course it is. You don't say anything. You just follow. Because what else can you do? Your shirt's soaked. Your legs feel like they're made of overcooked tamales, and your brain is busy trying to untangle what exactly you just whispered into a 1,000-year-old temple's acoustic chamber. The drum beat grows louder with each step. You turn a corner and emerge into a wide ceremonial plaza, sun-blasted and humming with anticipation. People are gathering, not crowds like in a city, but figures in motion. Silent, deliberate. There's a line of acolytes kneeling along a low stone platform, each one cradling a clay bowl. Some hold bundles of herbs or feathers, others are hunched over in prayer or maybe exhaustion. Incense wafts through the air in dense, glistening clouds. It smells like pine, citrus, and something a bit metallic. At the far end of the plaza stands a raised dais. It's painted in bold reds and yellows, the colours cracked but still vibrant. A long-stemmed canopy flutters above it, decorated with bright feathers and animal hides. And on the platform, elevated just high enough to be both revered and visible, sits a man. He wears a headdress that defies logic. It's taller than he is seated, crafted of green quetzal feathers that shimmer in the sun like reptilian silk. His tunic is layered with jade beads, turquoise tiles, and jaguar pelts. He's adorned with gold discs at his ears and a necklace made of carved bones, but it's his expression that holds you. It's not just regal, it's resigned. This is the king, and he's preparing to bleed. Your guide doesn't even blink. Ritual of giving. He opens himself, gives pain to gods. Voluntarily, you ask? Of course, he says. It is power. You watch as the king holds out his hand. A priest beside him hands over an obsidian shard. It's thin, sharp as a whisper, and glints dangerously in the sunlight. The crowd leans in, and just like that he pulls the blade across his palm. No flinching, no hesitation, just quiet release. The blood drips into a clay bowl. Then another slice, this time through his tongue. You wince so hard you pull a muscle in your soul, but he doesn't. He breathes deeply, eyes closed, face still. The priest catches the blood in a woven strip of bark, then lowers it over a brazier of burning copal. The heat curls the bark, and the king's blood begins to smoke. Thin streams rise skyward, twisting, shifting. You swear you see shapes in the smoke. A serpent, coiling, a mask, maybe your own confused expression, flickering like a hallucination. Sacrifice isn't death, your guide says softly. It's offering. Life turned into air. You try to nod, but your stomach's not convinced. To the Maya, blood was the essence of divine balance. Kings were intermediaries, bridges between the human world and the gods. To bleed publicly wasn't weakness, it was proof of spiritual strength. And not just any blood would do. It had to be noble blood, royal, sacred, with the right kind of lineage and an agreeable attitude toward internal suffering. There's a fringe theory that some of these bloodletting ceremonies induce trance states, that the pain, the smoke, the fasting all work together to open the mind to visions. Skeptics argue that's speculative at best, but then again, they've probably never inhaled burning tree bark laced with royal plasma. The crowd begins to chant, slow, rhythmic. Each syllable falls like a drop of water in a cave. The priest walks the perimeter of the dais, holding the smoking strip above his head, letting the wind carry it outward. Some people reach toward it, others bow, and you stand very, very still. Then, something unexpected. A second figure approaches the dais, a woman. Her headdress is smaller, still feathered, but subtler. She wears a robe of pale cotton embroidered with jade. She carries a shallow bowl, inside more obsidian shards. She kneels beside the king. The crowd grows silent. The guide leans close. She is consort, or sister, or priestess. Stories change. "Let me guess," you murmur. "The scholars are divided." He chuckles. "Very." She takes a shard, lifts it to her face, and draws it delicately across her tongue. Just once. Blood beads like dew. She adds her offering to the bowl, places it gently on the fire, and bows deeply. The smoke doubles and the brazier flickers with new life. The priest raises his staff and chants a single word, long, drawn out, sonorous. The king responds, then silence. It lasts longer than you expect. Then a new sound, flutes, soft, breathy. They rise from somewhere just beyond the plaza, drifting in like a lullaby for the gods. The king lowers his head. His part is done. He's helped to his feet slowly, reverently, not weakly, just with the weight of ritual clinging to him. You can't look away, because you realize you just witnessed a person offer his body to the sky, and no one screamed, no one clapped. There was no drama, just solemn, ancient commitment. You feel small, which might be the point. Do they always do this, you ask? Not always, says your guide. Only for big moments, eclipses, births, wars. He looks at you. Or when gods are listening. You nod, mostly because your mouth's dry and you're not sure what to say. You take a step back. The blood has been offered. The gods have heard. But what they'll do with that? Well, that part comes next. You walk away from the blood-soaked calm of the ceremony in silence. The flutes still drift behind you, faint and mournful, as though the music itself is trying to remember what just happened. You don't look back, not because you're brave, but because the weight of what you saw is still settling inside your chest, and you're not sure it would let go if you did. The guide leads you down a corridor of stones, low and narrow, almost claustrophobic. The walls are close, too close, and the shade is deep. You touch one of the surfaces, cool, damp, covered in carvings. "This is Whisper Hall," your guide says softly. "Speak once, echo many." You raise an eyebrow. "Another acoustic trick?" He nods. Messages carry, even to gods. You try it. Just a simple word. "Hello." The stone catches it, then throws it back in a swirl of echo, warped by centuries and humidity. It bounces once, twice, then fades like a breath on cold glass. The Maya had a habit of designing buildings not just to impress the eyes, but to interact with the voice. Courtyards that whistle, chambers that amplify, hallways that turn murmurs into incantations. And this corridor, this one doesn't just reflect your voice, it listens. Your guide stops. He points to a recessed doorway, low and rectangular, carved with rows of seated figures, each with fingers held to their mouths in silence. "Temple of offerings," he whispers. "No speak inside, only feel." You duck through the entrance, and immediately you understand what he meant. It's cold, strangely so. The air feels still, heavier than outside, and it smells of stone, dust, and something faintly metallic, like time rusting in place. Your eyes adjust. There's no grand chamber here, no towering altars or flaming torches, just a series of narrow passageways, each one lined with small niches carved into the walls. Inside each niche, offerings. Some are simple, small jade beads, obsidian flakes. tiny clay figurines shaped like animals or gods. Others are unsettling, tiny bones, dried feathers, an old flute with a cracked mouthpiece, a mask made of shell and teeth, grinning with uncomfortable enthusiasm. You crouch to examine one of the offerings, an intricately carved frog, no bigger than a plum, with eyes of crushed turquoise. For rain, your guide murmurs. Rain god needs gifts. Did it work, you ask? He shrugs. Sometimes. There's a scholarly debate about whether these offerings were made by commoners or priests, whether the temple was a public space or a private chamber. Some glyphs suggest daily visitors brought items. Others imply only chosen hands touched these walls. Whatever the truth, the sheer number of objects speaks volumes. Someone was always giving. You wander deeper. The floor dips just slightly, and the air grows cooler. The walls here are less decorated, but one panel stands out, a large stone slab with a circular carving at its centre. Around it are swirling patterns, serpents, wind glyphs, and what appears to be corn sprouting from a skull. You reach out. Your fingers graze the stone, and a whisper rises. You jerk your hand back. Your guide doesn't flinch. Sometimes, "Stone remembers," he says. You look at him. "Was that real?" He tilts his head. You think voice dies when speaker does. You don't answer. You're not sure if he wants one. Instead, you keep moving. There's a low platform ahead, no higher than your knees. Upon it sits a bowl. Inside, petals, some fresh, some ancient. All fragrant, jasmine, marigold, perhaps others you can't name. Around the bowl, faint footprints mark the dust, small ones, children's maybe, or something smaller. You turn to ask the guide, but he's already kneeling. He presses his forehead to the floor, eyes closed. Silence fills the space like water in a sealed jar. You follow suit, unsure of why, but certain that to stand here with hands in your pockets would be sacrilege. Your knees touch the cold stone, your forehead dips low, and for a moment, just a heartbeat, you feel it. The pressure, not fear, not reverence, something else, as though the room itself knows you're here, and it's waiting. You sit up slowly. No one speaks. Even the air is quiet, like it's holding its breath. Then your guide rises, gently, respectfully. You exit the way you came, back through the whisper corridor, back into the daylight. When you step outside, everything seems louder. The breeze, the birds, even your own breathing. You blink. The sun is past its zenith now, casting long shadows across the plaza. How many offerings are in there, you ask? Your guide looks up at the sky. Thousands, he says. More, maybe. Some still hidden. He smiles. Some still waiting. And before you can ask what that means, he points again. To the court. Time for fire. You resist the urge to groan. Instead, you follow. Because in this place, not following seems like a risk you don't want to take. You cross the courtyard slowly this time, more aware than ever of how many eyes are on you. Not just living ones, the stone ones too. Every surface in this place seems to have a face, and every face is watching. Wide, stylized eyes, carved teeth, some smiling, some not. The kind of crowd you wouldn't want to disappoint. The guide walks ahead, unhurried, leading you toward a temple you hadn't noticed before. It's lower than the others, squat and square, with thick walls and an entry framed by two enormous pillars carved into serpents. Their mouths gape wide, as though inviting you to step into the belly of something sacred and deeply untrustworthy. Smoke curls from inside, not the gentle wandering threads of incense, but thick, purposeful smoke, the kind that suggests fire, real fire. Your guide turns. "Blood fire," he says simply. You pause. "I thought we already did the blood part." He shakes his head. "Now we honour it." "Of course." You duck into the building. Inside, the room is dark, lit only by the glow of several stone braziers. Flames dance inside them, casting flickering shadows across the room. The walls are painted with scenes in red and black, kings standing tall over kneeling prisoners, warriors dancing around bonfires, gods reaching down from the sky with arms like roots. In the centre of the room is a platform, and lying upon it, arms outstretched, chest bare, is a man. Alive. Calm. There's no struggle, no ropes, just stillness. Priests move around him, their faces painted with thick lines of white and blue, their mouths covered by woven veils. They chant, not loudly, but constantly, like waves brushing ashore. One of them steps forward, holding a bowl filled with blood-red liquid. He dips his fingers into it and begins to paint the man's chest. Spiral patterns, lines, glyphs. Not sacrifice, your guide whispers. Devotion. The man on the altar is not a victim. He's a volunteer. To the Maya, blood wasn't just something you lost. It was something you gave, a bridge between human effort and divine attention. This ritual, strangely serene, is about offering that connection again, not in death, but in the openness of the body and the courage of stillness. The priest completes the design. Then, without warning, he steps back. Another priest approaches, this one carrying a torch. The flame is low, blue-tinged, steady. He touches the flame to a small dish beside the man's head. The contents ignite instantly. A burst of light, a hiss, a cloud of smoke. The painted symbols on the man's chest begin to steam, gently, then heavily, filling the air with a bitter mineral scent. You smell sap and maybe something like dried blood. It hits the back of your throat, hot and acrid. You cough quietly. The man doesn't move. This is called kuhulkak, your guide says. Holy fire. It lifts the gift. You look again. The smoke rises in a thick pillar, straight up, caught in a shaft of sunlight from a hidden hole in the ceiling. The light and smoke meet like fingers touching. Then something happens. The man opens his mouth and sings. It's not words, not ones you recognize anyway, but the sound is full and low, like thunder wrapped in honey. His voice rolls through the chamber, vibrating in your bones. The priests respond, not with words, with breath. They exhale rhythmically in waves, feeding the flame, shaping the smoke. The room is a living thing now. Heat, voice, flame, breath. Then, without ceremony, the man stops. The fire fades, silence returns. The priests step back, and the man sits up. No applause, no bows, just quiet. He steps down from the altar, blood slick and shining, and walks past you with calm eyes and a face that holds no pride, only peace. You watch him go, completely unsure of what to feel. Is he a priest, you ask? Your guide shrugs. Or farmer, or dancer, does not matter, only that he gives. There's a theory, still debated naturally, that certain temples held open rituals where any individual could participate if properly prepared. Others claim only nobility were allowed to offer blood in this way. Some even believe these rituals were tied to astronomy, performed only on days when Venus rose at dawn or when Mars danced close to the moon. Today just feels heavy. You exit the temple blinking, eyes watering from the smoke. Outside, the sun has lowered. The shadows are longer, stretching like fingers across the plaza. A cool breeze cuts through the heat. You breathe deeply. It doesn't help much. Your guide points upward. The day changes. Light softens. Time for movement. Movement, you echo. He nods. To dance. Of course. You're beginning to see a pattern here. Just when you think you've hit your physical limit, the Maya throw another cultural challenge your way. It's like a spiritual obstacle course, only sweatier. He leads you to a small courtyard nestled between two temples. Already people are gathering. Some wear painted masks, birds, jaguars, skeletal grins. Others have body paint, spirals, stripes, stars. There's music in the air now, drums, flutes, and the low rhythmic clack of wooden clappers. A woman approaches, pressing something into your hands. It's a mask, half jaguar, half human, eyes wide, tongue out. You hold it up. It's heavier than it looks, painted in red and gold. Tonight, your guide says, we dance for the gods. You stare at the mask. It stares back. You're not sure which of you is more nervous. You tighten the mask's strap around the back of your head, the rough fabric scraping your neck. It settles over your face with a muffled hush, and suddenly the world shifts. The eye holes are small, the inside smells faintly of dried paint and sweat, and your breath fogs up the lower part of the wood. Visibility, minimal. Dignity, gone. You're officially part jaguar now. The courtyard pulses with sound. Drums throb in a low, steady rhythm, like the heartbeat of some giant creature sleeping just below the plaza stones. Flutes weave in and out, their melodies eerie and lilting. occasionally slipping into what sounds suspiciously like laughter. The music is disorienting and hypnotic all at once. Around you, dancers begin to move, not in perfect unison, this isn't Broadway, but in purposeful, grounded motions. Feet slap the stone, hands sweep through the air, bodies twist, crouch, leap. It's primal, deliberate, and somehow timeless. You can't tell if you're witnessing something choreographed or something channeled. Your guide joins them, barefoot, masked, and shockingly agile. His steps are smooth but heavy, like he's stomping out old ghosts. Someone nudges your elbow. A young woman in a painted deer mask gestures for you to follow her lead. You hesitate, then you move. It's awkward at first. You're not a dancer, not by any known definition. Your hips creak, your knees protest, and your mask keeps slipping. But no one laughs, no one judges. The dancers move around you like water, and slowly, embarrassingly, you start to feel it. The rhythm, the pattern, the pull. You're not dancing well, but you're dancing sincerely, and that counts. The Maya believed that dance was more than performance. It was prayer in motion, a way to speak to the gods without words, to become the jaguar or the deer or the wind. Every stomp, every spin, every dramatic arm movement was a conversation with the divine, a request, a reminder, a thank you, or a challenge. You stomp again, harder this time. A puff of dust rises. Someone cheers. Somewhere nearby, a conch shell blows long and low. The dancers respond immediately. The tempo doubles. Drums thunder like distant hoofbeats. Your feet move faster, not from confidence but necessity. You're about to be trampled otherwise. The air is thick with movement and sweat and smoke. Somewhere in the chaos, a small fire has been lit. Its glow casts everyone in gold and shadow. The masks shimmer, the dancers blur. You catch glimpses. A crocodile leaping sideways, a hummingbird spinning in place, a skeletal figure moving with slow, jarring grace. It's not just a dance now, it's a myth being told with bodies. One dancer collapses into a crouch, reaching to the heavens. Another spirals toward him, arms flung wide like wings. A third hisses, slinking low to the ground before leaping straight up in a perfect arc. You have no idea what the story is, but you feel it, and that's the point. There's a mainstream theory that specific Maya dances were reenactments of creation myths, gods tearing themselves apart to make the world, or twins descending into the underworld to defeat death itself. The movements weren't random, they were scripts written in flesh. Yet some scholars argue that not all dances told stories. Some were just expressions, rhythms offered to deities in gratitude or fear. You're fairly certain the one you're doing now, something between a stomp and a desperate lunge, isn't in the canon. Still you persist, because in this moment there's no audience, no performance, just you breathing heavily inside a jaguar mask, trying to keep up with centuries of culture. Eventually the rhythm slows. The drums return to their original heartbeat tempo. The flutes fade. The dancers collapse into seated circles, panting, laughing softly, or lying on their backs and staring at the sky. You pull off your mask. Your face is drenched. Your limbs ache. Your heart races, and you're smiling. You've just participated in a ritual that predates nations, borders, and probably your ability to pronounce half the things you've seen today. Your guide sits beside you, mask in his lap. He nods, approving. You moved like animal. Hopefully not a wounded one, you mutter. He chuckles. Still counts. Nearby, a woman approaches with a wooden bowl. Inside is a dark, rich paste that smells like roasted heaven. Cacao, the guide says. Drink of gods. You take the bowl. It's warm, thick, and only slightly bitter. No sugar, no milk, just ground cacao beans, water, and a hint of chili. It coats your tongue like velvet, with a finish that says, "Congratulations, you survived the dance." Historically, cacao was more than a treat. It was sacred, used in ceremonies, offerings, even as currency. It was the drink of elites and gods alike, served during weddings, funerals, treaties, and, you guessed it, after sacred dances. You finish the bowl. The last drop tastes like smoke and dusk. The sky above is turning orange now, bleeding into purple. The jungle hums louder, more alive somehow, and the temple complex, so imposing and mysterious just hours ago, feels smaller, not less powerful, just more familiar. As the dancers scatter, your guide stands. "One more place," he says. You groan. "Please don't say stairs." He grins. "Many stairs." You sigh, then follow. Because at this point you're not just visiting, you're being initiated. You should have stretched. That's the only thought looping in your head as you climb yet another set of steps. This time, narrower, steeper, and meaner than any before. Your thighs are screaming. Your calves are plotting revenge. Even your toes are tired. You briefly consider throwing yourself at the mercy of the temple gods if they'll just flatten the next incline. Behind you, the jungle is glowing orange with late-day sun, shadows stretching long and thin like old secrets. Ahead, your guide is moving effortlessly, barely pausing at each step. It's like his legs were carved by the same stonemasons that built the pyramid. "Where are we going?" you huff, not expecting a kind answer. He turns slightly. "Underworld." You stop. "Excuse me?" He points to the top. "Jaguar Temple, gate to Xibalba." "Oh, wonderful." Not just a spiritual crossroads, a literal one. The Maya underworld, Xibalba, wasn't just some abstract concept of hell. It was real, physical. A labyrinthine realm beneath the earth where gods of death, disease and despair played tricks on mortal visitors. And apparently you're about to knock on its front door. The final few steps level out onto a stone landing flanked by twin jaguar statues. They stare down with blank obsidian eyes, mouths open in frozen snarls. Their backs are arched, their tails curl like question marks. "Touch them," your guide says. You do. They're warm from the sun, smooth, eerily lifelike. "Now enter," he says, motioning toward the temple entrance, a rectangular doorway sunk into blackness. You steel yourself and step inside. Cool air rushes to greet you, damp and heavy. The passage slopes downward, swallowing sunlight as you move. Soon the torch your guide lights is the only glow. Its flicker dances along the walls, revealing painted scenes that grow stranger with every step. A man walking upside down, a serpent eating the moon, a skeleton playing a drum made from someone's ribcage. Charming. "Why do these always go down?" you whisper. "Because all stories start in darkness," your guide replies. There's a scholarly debate about whether these descent-style temples were symbolic or functional. Were they meant to physically emulate the journey into Xibalba? Or were they theatrical stages, designed to unsettle, to humble, to prepare? Some even argue that rituals here were enhanced by sensory deprivation. No light, muffled sound, and the psychological weight of descent. You can confirm that last part. Your skin is crawling. Eventually the corridor widens into a chamber, circular, sunken and echoing. The floor dips gently into a pit lined with stones, and at its centre sits a stone basin filled with black water. So still it looks solid. Above you, a single shaft of light falls from a hole in the ceiling, slicing through the gloom like a dagger. "This is the mirror pool," the guide says. It sees both sides. You peer over the edge. Your reflection stares back, but not cleanly. The water distorts slightly, flickering like flame. You look older, stranger, a little lost. Your guide kneels beside the pool, sprinkling a handful of white petals across the surface. They float silently. Many people came here to speak with gods, with ancestors, with their own shadows. You're not sure which one sounds worst. "Did it work?" you ask. He shrugs. "If they listened." You sit beside him. The silence is deep, more like pressure than absence. You find yourself thinking about everything that's happened today. The sweat lodge, the bloodletting, the dance, the jaguar mask. Each memory feels like it happened years ago, each one heavy, coated in incense and heat. You watch the water. Slowly it begins to ripple, though no one touched it. You lean forward, just your breath. Maybe, or maybe not. The Maya believed that water, especially still water in sacred places, was a portal, a way to glimpse the other side, not just of life and death, but of understanding, dreams, memory, truth. Fringe theories suggest that certain herbs or minerals added to these pools enhanced visions. Others believe it was the sheer psychological effect of being deep underground, surrounded by ancient art, breathing in heavy incense and staring into yourself. You blink. For just a moment, the water shows something behind your reflection. A figure, not moving, not smiling, just there. You blink again. Gone. You scoot back a little, casually. Do people ever see things? You ask, voice lower than before. All the time, the guide says. That's the point. You sit in silence for a while longer, letting your thoughts swirl like the petals on the water. Eventually the guide rises. Come, light returns. You follow him back up the passage, feet heavy, thoughts heavier. When you step back into daylight, the sky is deep orange, bleeding into purple. Birds shriek from the canopy. Something rustles in the underbrush, large enough to make you glad for altitude. You take a deep breath. Air has never tasted so alive. Your guide claps his hands. Now we walk to the edge. You blink. The edge of what? He grins. World. Because sure, why not? You don't ask any more questions. You just walk. The temple behind you still feels present, like a memory that hasn't finished forming. Its stairs vanish into the dusk, swallowed by shadow, and somewhere deep inside that mirror pool still reflects something. You're not ready to think about what. Your guide doesn't rush. The path he leads you along now is winding and quiet, veined with tree roots and slick stones, brushing up against the jungle's edge. It's noticeably cooler here, and the sounds have changed. Less chatter, more whisper. Insects buzz lower to the ground, and somewhere far off, a bird cries with a voice like a scream held underwater. Then you hear it. Drums. Not the soft, steady kind from the dance. These are sharper, urgent, like someone hammering on a door that shouldn't be opened. You step through a stone archway overgrown with vines and emerge into a clearing lit by firelight. It's a festival, but not the joyful kind. Flames rise from tripods around the perimeter. Figures stand in tight groups, faces painted in stark black and white. Some wear masks, long-nosed, wide-mouthed, animal, skeletal. Others simply hold torches or chant softly, eyes fixed on the centre of the space. There, in the middle of it all, is a fire pit. Huge, controlled, alive. Around it, dancers move, not fluidly, not beautifully, but with purpose. They stomp, they twist, they jerk their limbs like they're pulling at invisible ropes. The drums match them beat for beat, each rhythm harsher than the last. It's jarring, uncomfortable, and weirdly magnetic. This is the fire of fear, your guide says, the one that makes gods look. Fear, you ask? He nods. Tonight, we honour fright, not to push it away, to offer it. Leave it to the Maya to make anxiety sacred. There's a theory, found in temple murals and codices, that certain Maya festivals centred not on joy or triumph, but dread. These nights were devoted to darker deities, underworld lords, skeletal gods, and trickster spirits. The idea wasn't to celebrate terror, but to acknowledge it, to make it visible, wearable, performable, because to ignore fear was to insult the gods who trafficked in it. One dancer breaks away from the others. He wears a jaguar mask, different from yours earlier. This one has exaggerated fangs and eyes that bulge grotesquely. His body is painted with black and red swirls. He stalks the edge of the crowd, growling, snarling, occasionally leaping at people who flinch and step back, laughing nervously. Your guide doesn't move. You try not to. A second dancer joins in, this one with a skeletal mask, ribs painted on his chest and arms. He carries a staff tipped with feathers and bones that rattle as he shakes it. They circle each other, then the fire, then they leap in. Not into the fire, thankfully, but into the inner ring, dancing faster, their shadows twisting and writhing on the temple walls. Around you, the crowd starts to hum. Not a song, just a sound. Low, vibrational, like dozens of voices tuning to the same cosmic frequency. The fire flares. You instinctively step back. Someone behind you laughs, a soft, breathy chuckle. You turn. No one's there. You rub your eyes. This is normal, your guide says. Oh yeah, you mutter. Completely normal. He smiles faintly. Fire shows what you carry. If it jumps, it's not the flames, it's you. Great. The dancers are joined by more now, 6, then 8, all masked. Some crawl like insects. Some shuffle like the wind is dragging them. One rolls on the ground, arms twitching like puppet strings. It's performance. Yes, but not for you. It's for someone watching that you can't see. You take a deep breath. The The smoke from the fire reaches you. It smells different. Not just wood and oil. There's something pungent, resinous, a bit sour. It catches in your throat, makes your eyes water. Someone near the fire tosses a handful of powder into the flames, and the light flashes blue-green for an instant. You blink again, and for a second, you swear the shadows are moving the wrong way. Fringe scholars theorize that certain herbs or minerals were used during these ceremonies to induce altered states of consciousness. Not necessarily hallucinogens, but compounds that heightened the senses, distorted time perception, and blurred the line between reality and ritual. Whether that's what's happening to you is anyone's guess. The music reaches a climax, the dancers freeze, the fire snaps, spits, then everything stops, not gradually, immediately. No drums, no chanting. Even the jungle seems to hush. The crowd parts slightly. A priest steps forward. He wears a feathered robe that rustles when he moves, and a mask carved into the face of a god with flaring nostrils and sharp, blocky teeth. He carries a bowl. You expect fire. Instead, he lifts the bowl to the sky and speaks a word you can't understand. Then he drinks. Just one sip. Then he turns and vanishes into the darkness behind the temple. Everyone exhales. Slowly, quietly. Some begin to whisper prayers. Others walk away silently. The fire dims. The fear is spent. Your guide places a hand on your shoulder. Fear offered, not forgotten. You nod. You don't have anything clever to say. He gestures again. To the pool. Your eyebrows rise. Another pool? He nods. But this one is sacred for a different reason. You sigh and follow him. The scent of fire clinging to your clothes, your skin, and somewhere deeper, like something's been singed in your thoughts. You walk in silence now, not out of fatigue, but reverence. The fire has quieted something inside you. Your heartbeat has slowed, but not completely calmed. It's like your body understands that what's coming next isn't rest, but stillness of a different kind. The guide leads you along a narrow path flanked by low shrubs and limestone walls. The stones feel older here, less cleaned, more weathered. Vines dangle across the trail like curious fingers. Overhead, the sky has turned a deep indigo. The last light of day is slipping behind the treetops, and with it the warmth. Then you hear it, soft at first. Water. Still, calm, patient. You round a bend, and there it is. A wide cenote, a natural limestone sinkhole filled with water so dark and glassy it might as well be obsidian. The trees round its rim lean inward, reflected perfectly on the surface. At its centre, a single lily pad floats, ghostly pale in the moonlight. This, your guide says, is the sacred pool. You step closer. Your feet crunch lightly on gravel as you approach the edge. The air here is noticeably cooler, damp. It smells of earth and moss, and the faintest hint of something metallic, like rain on old copper. You peer down. The water is incredibly clear. You can see smooth stones at the bottom, 10, maybe 12 meters below. Some glint faintly. Others are covered in moss, and a few look like bones. You glance at your guide. He nods. Yes, remains. Offerings. You don't ask whose. You're not sure you want to know. Cenotes like this weren't just watering holes. They were gateways, entrances to the underworld, sacred places where offerings were made to the gods, especially the rain god, Chak, to ensure crops, to ask for peace, or just to be seen. People came here in drought, your guide says, eyes on the water. Sometimes they threw gifts, sometimes themselves. There's a scholarly debate about whether the Maya performed human sacrifices by casting people, especially children, into cenotes. Some evidence supports the idea. Others believe the remains found are from natural burials or ceremonial deposits. The truth, as usual, swims somewhere beneath the surface. You kneel by the edge. The water doesn't ripple. Not a single insect dares touch it. Your guide hands you a small pouch. Inside, 3 items: a pinch of maize flour, a shard of jade, and a single cacao bean. Your offerings, he says. You hesitate. Do I just throw them in? No, he replies. You give them. You kneel lower, open the pouch, and one by one drop the items into the water. The maize flower floats briefly, then dissolves. The jade sinks straight down, catching a glint of moonlight before vanishing. The cacao bean bobs for a moment, then rolls over and slips beneath the surface like it was always meant to be there. The water accepts everything silently. You sit back, oddly drained, like your body knows it has less to carry now. The guide sits beside you, cross-legged. He speaks quietly. This cenote connects to others. Water runs deep, under temples, under cities. They say it carries the prayers. You imagine that. Whispers drifting through ancient channels beneath the jungle, surfacing miles away in another sacred pool. A subterranean postal service of the gods. A light wind rustles the leaves. Somewhere far off, an owl calls once, long and low, then silence, until your guide leans forward and points. You follow his gaze to a faint carving on a rock near the water's edge. It's a face, stylized, eyes closed, mouth open as if singing or gasping. Water spirit, he says. Watcher. Listener. You stare at it. It stares back. There's a fringe belief, one not widely accepted but hard to shake, that cenotes remember. That the spirits of those who gave offerings here remain, half asleep, watching, listening. Not in malice, just presence. Eternal audience. You shiver. Whether it's the idea or the breeze, you're not sure. The guide stands and offers you his hand. You take it, rising slowly. Your knees crack like dry sticks. The sacred pool doesn't flinch. As you turn to leave, you look back once more, just a glance, and for a split second, you think you see the surface shimmer, not with ripples, but with eyes, gone in a blink, but still. The water knows. You walk back in silence again, stepping carefully. Eventually the guide breaks the quiet. You did well, he says. You gave truthfully. You nod, unsure if that's good or terrifying. Now, he says with a grin, time to shine teeth. You frown. What? He taps his jaw. Shine, decorate, make smiles strong. And you realize, with growing dread, that he's not speaking metaphorically. You're about to learn how Maya royalty flossed. With jade, you're not ready, not emotionally, not dentally. But the guide leads you back into the complex with the same steady pace he's had all day, and soon you find yourself ducking into a long, low building flanked by two pillars carved with open-mouthed skulls, each one smiling in a way that suggests they've just seen the future, and you're not going to like it. Inside, the space is unusually clean. Tidy work surfaces, neatly arranged tools, rows of little stone bowls. It smells like ash, hot stone, and something herbal. On one wall, there's a series of etched glyphs showing a person reclining, mouth open, with small figures seemingly chiseling into their teeth. You don't even sit yet, and you already feel phantom gum pain. This is House of Teeth, your guide says cheerfully. Important place. High people come here. Kings, priests, dancers. I don't suppose they came for routine cleanings, you mutter. A soft chuckle behind you. You turn and spot a man entering the room, his face partly painted in black with jade inlays across his forehead. He wears no shirt, only a finely woven wrap skirt and a necklace made of course, small teeth. His own? Probably not. He gestures to a stone bench and motions for you to lie down. You hesitate. The guide raises a brow. You say yes to gods. Why not say yes to smile? Well, when you put it that way, you recline, not comfortably. The bench is stone, after all. There's no pillow unless you count your rapidly rising sense of dread. The man inspects your mouth like a craftsman sizing up a log that doesn't yet resemble a canoe. He mutters something to the guide, who nods approvingly. He say you have humble teeth, plenty of room. Great. The man turns to his workstation and retrieves a tiny jade bead. It glints green in the firelight. Beside it, a pointed obsidian tool, thinner than a knitting needle but significantly more judgmental. You sit up. Hold on, wait. What exactly are we doing here? Just look, your guide says. No drill, no pain. You squint at him. That's what everyone says before the pain starts. But you lie back down anyway, because at this point, what's one more bizarre ritual? The craftsman gently touches your incisor with the bead, then with the tip of the obsidian. He doesn't press, just gestures, explains in murmurs. It's a demonstration. Decoration only, the guide says. Show status, beauty, some say magic. And he's not exaggerating. Among the elite, Maya dentistry was a status symbol. Inlays of jade, turquoise, or hematite were common. Carefully drilled holes in the enamel filled with precious stones created glittering smiles worthy of kings. And the amazing part, archaeological evidence shows these procedures caused very little damage to the surrounding teeth. They had better cosmetic dentistry than some 20th century dentists. There are different meanings, your guide continues. Jade means power, shell means love, black stone means dreams. He pauses, then smiles. Gold means very big ego. You look at the glyphs on the wall again. They don't show pain, just pride. A wide grin with shining stones set neatly in a row. They ever regret it, you ask, still lying there? The guide shrugs. Some, but gods notice good teeth. That's comforting. There's a fringe theory among some archaeologists that certain stones were embedded not just for status, but as spiritual amplifiers, conduits for divine speech. The idea being that when a priest or ruler spoke, the gods could literally hear them better through the resonance of jade or obsidian. Whether this is poetic speculation or evidence of real metaphysical belief is still debated. You sit up slowly. The craftsman hands you a small polished mirror, just a shard of obsidian shaped like a hand mirror. You see your reflection, sweaty, wide-eyed, your mouth slightly open in uncertainty. No inlays today, just the idea of it. But weirdly, that's enough, because for a brief moment you get it. The Maya weren't just decorating themselves, they were declaring themselves. Every carved tooth, every bead, every glyph etched onto a body was a message. I belong to something higher. I am sacred. I speak for more than myself. You hand back the mirror. The craftsman nods. You nod back. Then he offers something unexpected. A tiny pouch of dried leaves. Chew, your guide says. Helps breath, sharpens tongue. You pop one in. It's bitter, earthy, and numbs your tongue slightly. But your breath does feel fresher. Plus it probably means you won't offend the gods at your next ceremony. You leave the dental house feeling taller. Not physically, obviously. Your legs are still sore and the staircase to everything ratio in this city remains absurd, but spiritually taller. Like you just earned a merit badge in divine oral aesthetics. The guide glances at the sky. Night comes, time for gift. You blink. Another one? He grins. This one easier. You just sleep. Your legs whisper, hallelujah. But of course, nothing here is simple sleep, because this is the Maya world, and even dreams are sacred. You expect to be led to a humble hut or a woven mat tucked in a corner of the temple grounds, maybe even a quiet patch of earth under a palm tree if the gods are feeling minimalist. Instead, your guide takes you to a circular structure at the far end of the complex, partly stone, partly wood, nestled between two tall trees whose limbs seem to arch protectively over its thatched roof. A torch flickers at the doorway, casting dappled light on painted walls. You see spirals, moons, eyes. Always the eyes. The guide stops. This is the dream house, he says softly. Tonight, we offer silence. You step inside, ducking under a low lintel. The room is small, round and empty, but for a mat of woven reeds in the centre and a bowl of smouldering herbs off to one side. The air inside is cooler than expected, thick with the earthy scent of crushed leaves, maybe cacao husk, definitely copal again. There's a second bowl near the mat. Inside, a thin layer of dark liquid. Your guide lifts it carefully and hands it to you. For dreaming, he explains. But not too much. Just enough. You sniff it. It smells faintly of roasted corn and something herbal, maybe passion flower. Definitely not NyQuil. You take a sip. It's bitter, warm, not unpleasant, like drinking the idea of sleep itself. He places a folded cloth beside you. Cover eyes. Block Moon. Is that a problem, you ask? Moon speaks loudly, he says. Better not to look at her when you want peace. Right. You lie down. The mat creaks beneath your weight, but not uncomfortably. Your limbs sink into it with surprising ease, like the reeds were woven to remember the shape of a tired body. The guide lingers just long enough to place a stone at your feet. Small, smooth, painted with a glyph you don't recognize. For keeping you here, he says cryptically, and then vanishes into the dark. You pull the cloth over your eyes and listen. The jungle has changed. During the day it crackled and hummed. Now it breathes, deep, long exhalations. Night insects chirp in strange, syncopated rhythms. An owl calls 3 times. Far off, something growls once, and then goes silent. You lie still, but your thoughts don't. You think about everything. The sweat lodge, the blood, the fire dance, the mirror pool, the whispers in the stone. You think about the temples and the masks, the moment you saw your own reflection move before you did. The eyes in the cenote, the smoke that danced in the shape of something unnameable. And now, in this quiet room where even your breath feels too loud, you begin to wonder, what's real and what's waiting? Maya dream culture wasn't an afterthought. Dreams weren't dismissed as random brain static. They were messages, pathways, visions granted by gods or ancestors or even the jungle itself. Some believed dreams could carry warnings, others saw them as trials, and a few considered them the only place where certain truths could safely be spoken. There's a mainstream theory that specific temples were designed for lucid dreaming, that priests would sleep in chambers lined with certain resins, under calculated moonlight, to provoke visions. Of course, the scientific community remains cautious on that claim. Still, lying here, the possibility doesn't seem that far-fetched. You feel the warmth of the herbal drink settle into your belly, like a slow-burning ember. Your limbs grow heavier, thoughts begin to dissolve, and the dreams arrive without warning. You're in the ball court again, only it's wrong. The walls stretch taller than before, tilting inward, and the skies are deep crimson. The stone rings float above, slowly spinning, and the ball is no longer made of rubber. It pulses like a heart. You turn. Your guide is there, but he's wearing your face. He nods once, then he leaps into the air and disappears. You're standing in front of the mirror pool now, only it's dry. The stone basin is filled with bones, clean, arranged like clock gears. You reach down to touch one, it turns to dust. Then you're running, through the whisper corridor. Only the walls aren't carved now, they're covered in mouths, each whispering different words you've heard today, some in English, some in Mayan, some in no language at all. You reach the temple at the end, and the door is open. Inside, the king is sitting. He looks at you, then reaches into his chest and offers you his heart. You wake up with a jolt. It's still dark. The jungle is quieter now. You're sweating even though the air is cool. You sit up. The bowl is empty. The stone is still at your feet. You lift the cloth off your face. The moon peers down through the thatched roof. Faint, pale, distant. Not speaking anymore. The door opens softly. Your guide stands there, silhouetted by starlight. You woke at the right time, he says. That's good. Why? You ask hoarsely. Because now, he says, you meet the water that remembers. You blink, he smiles. The cenote was for the gods. This one is for the dead. Of course, because sleep was just a courtesy. And now, you're back in the story. You're not even surprised anymore. Not when the guide says you'll be walking again. Not when he hands you a fresh torch like it's a bedtime snack. And definitely not when he mentions, quite casually, that this next location is where the veil is thinnest. You're numb. Not physically, thank goodness, though your legs feel like overcooked tamales. But spiritually, emotionally, at this point you've surrendered all expectations. You're a leaf in a river of extremely elaborate, slightly menacing tradition. The guide leads you back through the jungle, not deep, just far enough that the sounds of the temple complex fade into the canopy. The trail is narrow, hemmed in by vines and thick underbrush. The torch crackles softly in your hand, illuminating only a few feet ahead. Everything beyond that is pure suggestion. Eventually you reach a stone wall, half collapsed, with a single opening shaped like an inverted triangle. It's barely taller than your shoulders and framed by worn glyphs that look almost melted in the moonlight. This is the mouth of bone, your guide says. Entrance to the remembering pool. You duck inside. The air changes immediately, cooler, wetter. It smells of limestone, moss, and something older, like paper left too long in the rain. The passage slopes downward, and soon your feet splash gently into water. Shallow at first, just enough to chill your ankles. The torchlight flickers against the walls, revealing scenes that feel more personal than mythological. A woman grinding maize, a man fishing, a child playing with a jaguar cub. Not gods, not kings, just people. These are memories, your guide says, carved before their names were lost. You nod, though you're not sure he sees. The path widens into a chamber. Here, the water deepens. A natural pool, maybe 15 feet across, perfectly round and still. The ceiling is low, and the stone above has a circular hole directly above the centre of the pool, just large enough to let the moonlight through in a tight glowing beam. This light touches the surface of the water like a fingertip. It's breathtaking, but also eerie, because beneath that pool's surface you can already see them. Bones, not jumbled, not scattered, arranged. A spine that curves like a question mark. A ribcage fanned out like wings. A skull placed at the exact centre, looking up. You step back instinctively. It's okay, your guide murmurs. They're not angry. I didn't say they were, but you wondered. He kneels beside the pool, pulls out a small bowl of herbs, and scatters a few leaves across the surface. They float for a moment before slowly drifting into the circle of moonlight. This cenote is not for gods, he says. This is where families came, to remember. You crouch beside him. You mean, they buried them here. Number they placed them here, he says, so they could dream. You glance at the skull. There's a slight tilt to its angle, like it's listening. There's a fringe belief among Maya scholars, mostly found in oral traditions, that certain cenotes were used not as tombs, but as memory vessels. That the bones placed there weren't mourned, but honoured as keepers of family knowledge. Some stories claim that if you dreamed near these bones, you could speak with the dead, not metaphorically, but actually. You look at your guide. Have you dreamed here? He nods. Once. Slowly. And? He touches his chest. My grandfather spoke to me. Told me where the fish hide when the river runs high, you blink. Practical, he shrugs. The dead still care about dinner. You both fall into silence, watching the leaves drift. Then he hands you a flat, round stone. Place it. You don't ask where. You just step forward, ease it into the water and gently set it down between the edge of the pool and the ribcage. The water ripples slightly, but then stills. A sound rises. Not from the pool. From behind you. A soft, chuffing breath. Animal. Maybe wind. Maybe not. You spin, but there's nothing. Just the tunnel you came through. You turn back. The skull is different. Its angle has shifted. Not dramatically. Just enough that you notice. You swallow. They do that sometimes, your guide says, to show they heard. You nod, trying very hard not to breathe too loudly. Then he hands you a small bundle, cloth-wrapped, surprisingly heavy. You open it. Inside, a piece of carved bone, smooth as ivory, etched with glyphs. What is this? Your memory, he replies. Your visit. Now marked. You stare at the glyphs. They aren't random. One looks like a step, one like a feather, one like a hand. You realise it's your path, your sweat, your climb, your dance, your fear, your day. It will be kept here, he says, among others. You glance toward a niche in the wall. Inside are dozens of similar bundles, each one unique, some decades old, some maybe centuries. You carefully rewrap yours, hand it back. The guide places it in the niche without a word. Then he stands and gestures. Come, we rise now. There is food. You blink. Wait, we're just leaving? They'll remember you, he says, motioning to the skull. You don't have to linger. You look at the pool one last time, and suddenly it feels okay to leave. Not because you're brave, but because you're remembered. You follow the guide back up the tunnel, feet splashing softly, and behind you the chamber fades into darkness. But the pool still shines, and the bones still dream. You emerge from the passage like a seedling rising through soil, blinking, breathless, and slightly disoriented. The air outside feels different now, lighter, fresher, and not just because you've left the company of arranged bones and moonlit water. Something inside you has shifted. You're not the same person who climbed those first temple steps, sweaty and skeptical. You're someone who's been stared at by stone masks, danced in a jaguar face, nearly passed out from sacred chili paste, and been politely acknowledged by the skull of an ancestor. You're evolving, but also hungry. Your guide leads you down a narrow path flanked by low lanterns glowing with soft animal fat flames. You can smell something now, warm, savoury, with the unmistakable note of smoke and firewood. You eat now, he says, then you learn to see. You raise an eyebrow, but say nothing. Food first. Philosophical riddles later. The path opens into a small, stone-lined courtyard. In its centre, a low fire burns steadily. Around it, a few women tend to flat griddles laid over stones. One is pressing maize dough into rounds. Another flips flat cakes onto a banana leaf. There's a large clay pot bubbling quietly near the fire, and when one of them lifts the lid, the smell makes your knees weak. They hand you a bowl. Inside, a thick maize-based stew, golden orange, with chunks of squash and something that might be turkey or rabbit. It's smoky, earthy, and comforting in a way that transcends language. The texture is creamy but rustic, as though every ingredient is still whispering its origin. You take a sip. Your soul sighs. It's called sak-ik, a traditional Maya stew, sometimes eaten during festivals or sacred transitions. Mild in heat, rich in history. Every region has its version. Some use chile, others use achiote or sour orange. The version you're holding might be ancient, or it might just be someone's grandmother's take. Either way, it tastes like survival. You sit near the fire and tear into a fresh tortilla, still warm from the griddle. It's not like the tamale from earlier. This one is soft, tender, salted just right. You catch the eye of one of the cooks. She winks, then tosses another tortilla on the fire like it's nothing. You want to kiss her. As you eat, the guide begins to speak. You've walked the steps, felt the stone, heard the drums. Now you will read what they left. He gestures behind him to a wall, low, wide, and covered in glyphs. You walk toward it slowly, stomach full, hands warm from the bowl. The wall is a text, clearly. Hundreds of glyphs in rows, spiralling inward like the story is folding back on itself. Some are crisp, others weathered by time and rain. Most cannot read this, the guide says, but we remember the sounds. He points to a cluster of glyphs shaped like feathers, teeth, and an eye. This says, when the sky was still sleeping, we carved the light into stone. You pause. That's poetic. It's memory, he says. Not everything is fact. Some truths are too big for truth. You stare at the glyphs, tracing one with your finger. It's a stylized ear of corn with lines shooting outward like sunbeams. Beneath it, 2 footprints. Beneath that, a jaguar head. Is this a story, you ask? Or a map, he replies. Or a warning. Or a prayer. There's a mainstream theory that Maya glyphs weren't always literal. They layered meaning through context, position, colour, and even reader interpretation. One glyph could mean sun, god, time, or day, depending on how it was placed. Scholars are still unravelling the puzzle, but among some Maya descendants today, the reading is felt, not translated. He places a hand on the wall. Sometimes the stone tells us what it needs us to hear. You whisper without meaning to, and what if it tells you nothing? He smiles. Then it waits. You step back. The wall feels alive, not in a magical way, more like a memory that hums just under your skin, like you could almost understand it if you stood there long enough. The guide picks up a small slate and hands it to you. It's smooth, rectangular, and marked with 3 simple glyphs. You recognize one. It's the ear of corn. You glance at him. For me? He nods. Your path, in 3 words. What do they say? He grins. You tell me tomorrow. There's a fringe belief among some Maya spiritualists that true understanding of glyphs comes not through studying, but through dreaming, after contact, after reflection. That symbols reveal themselves slowly, and not always kindly. You tuck the slate into your bag. You're about to speak when a low horn sounds from the distance. Not a warning, a signal. The guide stands. One last thing before sleep. You blink. Another? Light must greet darkness, even now. He gestures to a torchlit trail. You've seen what they built. Now, you see how they watch the sky. You sigh softly, then stand, because of course the Maya didn't just honour the ground. They wrote their stories in stars. And you? You're going to read one. You follow the guide again, the path gently sloping upward this time, away from the central temples and out toward the edge of the complex. Your belly is full, your breath steady, and your legs, while deeply unimpressed by the idea of yet another hike, carry you forward with a kind of resigned grace. You're used to it by now. The jungle opens into a quiet clearing. Here, the trees recede. No temples loom above. No fire pits burn. Just a flat expanse of open ground beneath a sky that's begun to glitter. He leads you toward a raised stone platform. It's square, low, and clearly intentional, worn by feet, time, and ceremony. Around it, carved posts stand like sentinels, their surfaces covered with worn faces, starbursts, and lines that trace the arc of some unknown celestial geometry. The guide gestures to the stone surface. You sit. You're on the back of the sky, he says. That would sound ridiculous anywhere else. Here, it makes perfect sense. Above you, the heavens stretch wide and dark and strangely close. The sky in this part of the world isn't like city sky. It doesn't just hang, it leans. The stars press down, bright and sharp, as though you're seeing them through the eyes of someone who once named them not for science, but for survival. The guide lies back beside you, arms behind his head. Maya sky is not empty, he murmurs. It is full of stories. You lie back too. At first you only see what you always do. Dots, twinkles, patterns you half remember from grade school. The Big Dipper, Orion's belt. Maybe something that might be a planet if you squint. But slowly, as your eyes adjust and your mind quiets, something shifts. There's a band, a thick, smoky trail stretching across the sky. That, your guide says, pointing, is the Black Road. You blink. The what? The Xibalba Bee, the road to the underworld. It's the Milky Way. But tonight it's more than a galaxy. It's a path. To us, that is where the dead walk, where the gods came from, where they return. He points again, this time to a bright cluster of stars near the centre of the band. That is the hearth, 3 stones, and there, see that faint spot? That is the fire. You squint. The shape becomes clear. 3 stars in a triangle, Orion's belt and 2 others, and beside them a hazy nebula. That's it, the cosmic hearth. The Maya believed the sky was a mirror of Earth. That creation was an act of balance, setting the hearthstones of the sky to reflect the fires of the Earth. And when the gods created humanity, they used maize and starlight, water and ash. There's a scholarly debate about how precise Maya astronomical knowledge truly was. Some claim their stargazing rivaled modern observatories. Others suggest their focus was ritual, not science. But standing here, beneath this sky, it doesn't matter. Because it's not about measurement, it's about meaning. You watch the stars drift slowly overhead. The Earth turns beneath you. Do they still tell stories about this, you ask? Of course, your guide replies. But now they are softer, whispered, not shouted. He reaches into his pouch and removes something, a small disc of polished shell. He holds it up, catching the light from a distant torch behind you. The disc flashes faintly. He places it in your hand. Star map, he says. Old way, marked by hand. You run your thumb over it. Tiny etchings. You can't decipher them, but they feel deliberate. There was a boy, the guide says, eyes still on the sky. He watched the stars every night, sat where you sit now. He knew when the rains would come, just by the colour of the moon. What happened to him? He became a priest, the guide shrugs. Or a bird, or maybe he's still watching. You're not sure if he's joking. You're not sure you want to know. You turn the disc over. On the other side, a carving. Simple, smooth. A hand reaching up. A star falling down. Balance, the guide says. Sky in hand, always in motion. You lie there for a long time. No one speaks. No one needs to. The wind brushes through the trees. The stars rotate silently above. And slowly, as the moon rises higher and the insects hum softer, your breath slows. Somewhere nearby, a jaguar cries out, low and mournful. You don't flinch this time. You just listen. Because now you know, everything here is speaking. The stones, the stars, the bones, the fire, the silence. You sit up eventually. The guide nods. It's almost time. Time for what, you ask, more curious than anxious. For the place behind the temple, he says. The part no one sees. You blink. We've been behind the temples, he shakes his head. Number. We've been around them. This is deeper, you sigh. What is it this time? A ghost chamber? A dream archive? A god with a clipboard? He smiles. Something like that. He stands and dusts off his knees, and once again, without needing to ask why or where, you follow. You follow the guide away from the sky, reluctantly leaving behind the stars and their quiet, ancient fire. The jungle folds around you again, softly now, not as a wall but a shroud. Everything is quieter than before. Even your footsteps feel muffled, as though the ground itself is asking for silence. The path narrows, then bends, then disappears. There's no trail here anymore, just the guide's footsteps and your own willingness to keep moving forward. Finally, he stops in front of a structure so modest you almost miss it. A low, flat wall. No staircases, no carvings, just a plain stone slab pressed into the earth, half covered in moss. It looks more like a forgotten floor than any kind of sacred site. This, he says, brushing leaves from the surface, is the place of reset. You blink. The what? He kneels and traces a faint circle on the stone with his palm. This is where time turns. You stare at it. Still looks like a rock, but you're not one to question rocks anymore. This marks the end of one Bakhtun, he explains, and the beginning of the next. A Bakhtun. Yes, you've heard that before. It's part of the long count calendar, the grand system the Maya used to track cosmic cycles. A Bakhtun is roughly 394 years long. So ending one wasn't just flipping a calendar page, it was rebooting reality. This was the place, your guide says, where they gathered. When one world finished and another started, you crouch beside him. There's nothing here, you murmur. He nods. That is the point. There's a scholarly debate over how the Maya perceived their calendar resets. Some claim they viewed them as apocalyptic, the end of an age. Others argue it was more ceremonial, a turning of the wheel, a symbolic fresh start rather than a destructive cataclysm. After all, the world didn't end in 2012, at least not literally. But that doesn't mean people didn't feel it. They came here with no words, the guide says, no offerings, just breathe, just presence. You look at the stone again. The moss forms a ring around the central spot now brushed clean by his hand. The stone is cool beneath your fingers, still, heavy, patient. What did they expect to happen, you ask? He shrugs. Some waited for gods, others waited for nothing. Most just waited. You close your eyes and try to imagine it. Hundreds of years ago, a crowd gathered in this quiet clearing. No chanting, no blood, no performance. Just the end of an age and the first breath of a new one. You take a deep breath, half expecting to feel something dramatic. Wind, vibration, an ethereal whisper. Instead, the silence deepens. The night holds you, and for the first time all day there is no task, no ritual, no test, just stillness. You sit on the slab, legs crossed. The guide does the same. You stay that way for a while, minutes, an hour. Time here doesn't behave anymore. Eventually your guide speaks. Do you know what day it is? You open your eyes. Not really. He grins. Good. He points to the eastern horizon. A faint glow now teases the edge of the trees. Sun comes soon. That means we walk. Where to? He stands. To the beginning. You blink. Didn't we already do that? This place, he says, was the end of one cycle. The place you saw first, at dawn, is where things begin again, and you realize you're about to return to the very first temple, the same stairs you climbed this morning, gasping, sweating, skeptical. But you won't see them the same way now, not after this. The guide begins walking and you follow, body moving slowly, mind moving slower. As you go, you catch glimpses of the world returning to light. Birds begin to stir, leaves glisten with dew. The forest exhales. Somewhere behind you, a low moan of wind passes over the reset stone. It doesn't call. It doesn't chase. But it knows you were there. And that's enough. You arrive back at the base of the pyramid just as the sun breaks the horizon. Its light spills across the stone steps. You remember how impossible they looked this morning. Now they look different. Still steep. Still ancient. But no longer intimidating. Just familiar. You turn to the guide. Is it over? He shakes his head. Almost. One more step. You raise an eyebrow. Oh, come on, you say. That's got to be the oldest line in the Temple Tour handbook. He laughs, full and honest. Then points, not to the steps, to a shadowed doorway near the base, a place you hadn't noticed before. Low, narrow, carved with a single glyph. You lean in. It's the same symbol as the one on your small jade plaque. The ear of corn, the hand, the feather. This is the breath house, he says. The breath of what? He looks at you. Of you. You step forward, hand on the lintel, and inhale. You duck through the narrow doorway and into shadow. The light behind you fades quickly, replaced by a soft, steady coolness that wraps around your skin like silk pulled from the earth. The air inside the breath house is different, less like a room, more like a lung, moist, measured, alive. The space is small, round, windowless. Its walls curve inward like the inside of a clay jar, smoothed by centuries of reverent fingers. You can hear it almost immediately, the sound, not voices, not echoes, just air, breathing, in, outside, deep and ancient. You pause, because it takes a moment to realize it's your own breath, but it sounds bigger. The acoustics of this place catch every inhale, amplify every exhale. It's as if the building itself is exhaling with you, syncing its rhythm to your chest. You sit without being told. There's no altar, no stone bowl, just a slight depression in the center of the room, filled with fine white dust and tiny shells. Your guide enters behind you and sits as well, cross-legged, eyes closed. "This is where they came," he whispers, not to speak, but to be spoken to. You stay silent. It seems right. The Maya believed breath was more than function. It was sacred essence, the first gift of life, the last thing to leave at death. The spirit was in the breath, so to sit here, in the breath house, was to align with the very substance of soul. You close your eyes and listen. It starts small, a soft sound behind your ears. Then it spreads. There's no wind, and yet something stirs your hair. You don't feel afraid. You feel held. The shell dust at your feet shifts slightly, just enough to notice. The room deepens. Your breath slows. Then the whispers begin. Not from your guide, not from your own thoughts, from around you. They don't have language, not really. Just impressions, feelings, like memories spoken by someone else, in a dream you don't fully remember. You try not to force it. The room doesn't reward demand, but it offers something else, stillness and presence. You see your own day unfolding quietly behind your eyes. The stairs, the blood, the pool, the stars, the bones. You remember the man offering his heart, the woman slicing her tongue in silence, the child's footprints near the offering bowl. Each moment rises and passes like waves, software reluctant to leave. Some scholars believe breath houses were not merely ceremonial, but served as calibration chambers, places to align body, time, and spirit. Before major rituals, it's said initiates sat here to let the noise drain away, to hear their inner cadence, to be in sync with the turning of the world. Others believe these spaces were meant to help the priesthood receive visions, a kind of meditative chamber where fasting, silence, and acoustics would blur the edge between self and God. Fringe theorists go further, suggesting that certain tones, when whispered inside structures like this, could invoke hallucinations or states of hyper-awareness. You don't know which version is true, but you do know this. Something is happening. You inhale, and for a moment the air feels thicker, not oppressive, just full of time, of voices, of recognition. The small jade tablet in your bag shifts slightly. You touch it, pull it out. You forgot how heavy it was. You hold it in both hands, resting it on your knees. The glyphs are clear now, and you understand. Not intellectually, not through translation. You just know. One means arrival. One means witness. One means return. You smile without meaning to. The room exhales with you. You place the tablet in the center depression beside the shells. It doesn't sink. It sits perfectly level, and the room stills. Your guide opens his eyes. "You heard," he says. You nod. No other words needed. You rise slowly, brush off your legs. The doorway glows faintly now. Dawn is arriving. The last time you stepped into morning, it was with confusion and heat. Now, you rise into it with stillness and clarity. Outside, birds have started to sing. Not in a rush, not in alarm, just presence. You take one step into the light and the guide joins you. He points to the eastern horizon. "Soon," he says, "the drums will call again." You look at him. "But I won't be here." He shrugs. "Your breath will." You walk slowly toward the plaza, and suddenly the buildings look different. Not just old, not just mysterious. They look familiar. The faces carved into the walls no longer frown or leer. They look like they're waiting to welcome. Your guide gestures ahead. "To the altar. One last witness." You nod. Not from duty, but because it feels right. You approach the altar with a quiet kind of gravity. It sits alone in the centre of the main plaza where you first arrived. Stone grey and low to the ground, smoothed by centuries of footsteps, offerings, prayers, and maybe a few moments of hesitation like the one you're having now. The sky is softening into gold behind it, the eastern horizon glowing as the first strands of sunlight tug their way over the trees. The jungle holds its breath. You step closer. This altar doesn't look ceremonial. No carvings, no incense burners, just stone, flat, worn, and then you notice scratched, not chiselled names, hundreds of them, maybe thousands, some in glyphs, some in Latin script, some just initials or symbols, all faint, all personal, not official, not sanctioned, just left behind. Your guide stands beside you, arms folded. Visitors, pilgrims, farmers, priests, outsiders, everyone marks it. He points to a small indentation on the left corner, someone's handprint, shallow and smudged by time. They call it the witness stone, because no matter who you are, it saw you. You run your fingers across a row of barely visible lines. Dates, maybe. Prayers. Fragments of days long faded. You crouch, and without being asked, you rest your palm beside the others. It fits. Not perfectly, but closely enough that the stone feels warm under your skin, as if it remembers contact. The guide kneels beside you and places a small, rounded stone beside your hand. It's polished, river-worn, with a tiny hole in the centre. You leave this here. That's the way. You pick it up, feel its weight, then gently place it next to the handprint, adding it to the silent constellation of human presence already embedded here. The altar doesn't respond, but it doesn't need to, because the moment you rise, something else does too. The drums, low at first, like thunder far away, then closer, stronger. Boom, boom, boom. You turn. From the far end of the plaza, figures begin to emerge, silent, slow, ceremonial. Not in costumes this time, no masks, no feathers, just people, locals perhaps, attendants or descendants of those who once ruled here. They form a circle around the altar, facing outward, palms raised. The guide nods to you. You join them, and for the first time you realise this isn't performance, it's closure. You raise your hand, matching the others. The drums continue, steady, not urgent. A heartbeat? Yes, but not yours anymore. It's the city's. A place so ancient it remembers your steps before you take them. A wind stirs the trees. A sunbeam catches the altar edge. And just like that, light returns. Not metaphor, not poetry, just the truth of morning. Your guide lowers his hand and speaks without turning. Now you walk out. No need for farewell. The place already knows you left. You nod, eyes fixed on the altar, then the people, then the rising sun. And then, quietly, respectfully, you step backward. One foot, then the next, and then you turn and walk. The city does not chase you. It does not cling. It lets you go. Because you came, you witnessed, and now you carry something else. Not memory, not belief, just weightless knowing. As the jungle swells back around you and the temple complex vanishes behind a curtain of vines and morning mist, you realise you haven't spoken in hours, and yet you've never felt more heard. The jungle greets you one last time, not with its earlier heat or buzzing insistence, but with a quiet rustle of leaves, a ripple of soft birdsong, and the gentle hush of morning returning to itself. The light filtering through the canopy is different now, not just brighter, but kinder. Gold where it was grey. Welcome where it was warning. You walk slowly, not out of fatigue, but because something in you doesn't want to break the rhythm. Every leaf underfoot, every fern brushing your arm, every distant call of bird or monkey feels like a soft refrain, in a song you've been part of for longer than you realize. Your guide walks ahead. No torch this time, no staff, no words. He knows the path. And now, so do you. Eventually, you reach the edge of the complex. You can see it clearly now, the boundary between the sacred and the mundane. There's no fence, no gate, no dramatic shift in terrain. Just a thinning of trees, a widening of sky, and the sense that you're leaving something ancient behind, and carrying it forward anyway. The guide stops at a stone marker near the path's end. It's waist high, ringed with moss, and topped with a simple carving, a spiral, not inward, but out. He gestures to it. This is where people step back into the world. You look at him. Do they ever come back? He shrugs. Not with feet, but maybe with memory. He places a hand on the stone, then steps aside. You do the same. And the moment your fingers touch the spiral, a breeze stirs around you. Not strong, not sudden. Just a final exhale. It smells of sweat, stone, smoke, maize, copal, time. He nods once as if to say, "You made it." Then he steps back into the trees. No goodbye, because none is needed. You stand alone now just beyond the temple's reach. The sunlight touches your face. You blink up at the sky, clear, blue and innocent, as if the stars from last night are now sleeping behind it. You begin to walk, down a slope, across a grassy patch, toward a worn dirt path that leads eventually to the world you know. Cars, schedules, electricity, questions with answers, but not all answers, because deep inside you now, there's a memory that doesn't quite speak in words. It hums, it waits, it listens. You glance back once, no temples, just trees. But beneath those trees is a rhythm older than any history book. A voice that doesn't rise, doesn't rush, doesn't need to shout to be heard. You smile, then walk forward. And the sound of your own footsteps tells you exactly what the city told you when you first arrived. You were here, and you listened. You're lying in bed now, safe, still. The jungle has gone quiet, and the temples have faded from view, tucked gently back into memory where they can rest again. Let your body sink into the mattress. Feel the muscles in your shoulders slowly release. Let the weight of the day melt down your arms, through your fingertips, and drift away. Take a slow breath in through your nose. Let it fill your belly, soft and low. Then exhale gently through your mouth, like you're sending the last of the smoke from a sacred fire back to the sky. The Maya world you visited tonight, its heat, its drums, its whispers and dreams, it all belongs to time now, a time that doesn't rush, that doesn't demand, that simply watches and waits. There are still pools beneath the earth reflecting the stars, still stones carved by hands long gone, still stories swirling in air we all share. You touched them, you walk their paths, and now they walk with you. So rest easy. Let your breath rise and fall like a cenote tide. Let your heartbeat match the ancient drums, slower now, softer. The gods have seen you, the walls have heard you, the stones remember, and now you sleep. End of script. Sweet dreams.